Good morning, all you wonderful people. How are you all doing? I apologise in advance if I'm blinking a bit more than usual today. My daughters love this stuff. Slime. You ever seen it? This is a unicorn, no, mermaid putty. It's gross, and I spend all my time just going, don't do it on the carpet. Don't stick it to the furniture. Don't stick it to your faces. That's the main thing. Don't stick it to your faces. Because I was sticking it all around their faces, and I was like, it's dangerous. It could go in your eyes. And then today, for some unfathomable reason, I thought it'd be hilarious to put a couple of blobs on my eyes and pretend to be a monster, and completely forgot I had eyelashes. And now every time I blink, my eyes are like fused together by mermaid putty. So I'm not winking at you. I'm just trying to see. So yeah, sorry about that. Don't stick putty in your eyes. There you go. That's today's lesson. Okay, we are in execution. Alex and Z and Simon and Lucy and a black suit, who has been nicknamed Bob, have escaped from the military facility, which was kind of rounding up Furness's monsters, and are basically on the run from the army and also trying to find Alfred Furness so they can kill him. Alex is kind of communicating with Furness a little bit on the way. Furness is like, you are my new general. Alex is like, no, I'm going to kill you. And Furness is like, yeah, I know, but you're still my new general. And Alex doesn't really know what's going on. Anyway, he's just in the last chapter he's been at home, his old house, and he's just had a dream where Furness is seen, he kind of seeing what happened to Furness after he was kind of after he swallowed the stranger's blood, and he's just had a dream, and Furness has basically gone, wake up, they're here. But who do you ask? Stupid putty all in my eyelashes. Anyway, reunion, and as some of you guessed, well, actually I better not say that's a spoiler, but yes, those of you who guessed correctly, they're here. I spat out the words as I woke, still feeling the spray of mist on my skin, hearing the rumble of the ocean. I was sitting in the chair in the lounge. Z and Lucy were asleep next to each other on the sofa in their matching military uniforms, his head on her shoulder. The dreams were already fading, bleeding into the corners of my mind, but they'd wound my heart up like a clockwork toy, letting it loose at what felt like 1,000,000 beats per minute. I rubbed my hand against my chest, trying to calm it before it jumped right out of my throat. Z snorted gently, one eye opening, like me. Maybe he had putty in his eyelashes. Did you say something? He slurred. I let myself fall back into the chair, shaking my head, my pulse slowly returning to normal. It had just been the nightmares, those fears crossing the threshold between sleep and reality. A weak, smoky light was filtering in through the window, past the tangle of curtains. It was dawn, and there was no one here but us. So why could I still hear the ocean? I stood, walking out into the hall, towards the front door. That roar was getting louder, sounding less like the sea and more like a distant storm pulling itself over the horizon. Outside, it was even clearer, making the remaining glass rattle in the window frames. I could hear car alarms too, triggered by the trembling ground. It seemed as though it was barely morning, half the world hidden in an eerie grey light, but I could see the disk of the sun above a rooftop on the other side of the street, so drenched in smoke and cloud that I could look right at it without even squinting. Everything okay? Z had followed me out and was standing in the doorway, still looking half asleep. He wiped his eyes, yawning. Hey, your hand's looking better. I lifted my left arm, seeing that my fingers, or at least those 3 nubbins of charred flesh that were becoming fingers, had grown another inch when I was asleep. I lowered it again. Right now, there were more important things. Can you hear that? I asked. Z cocked his head one way, and then the other. Yeah, what is that? Sounds like Simon's snoring. Go wake him up, I said. Lucy too. We should get out of here. Why? Asked Z, and I had to stop myself from saying, because Furness told us to. Just do it, I said. He saw the look on my face and ran back inside without asking any more questions. The fleshy pink berserker roosted on a car on the other side of the street, examining the stump where its arm had once been. There was no sign of the Minotaur-like one. I stepped out of the garden, looking for the black suit, eventually finding him inside the truck. He, too, was asleep. I pulled open the door, the squeal of metal making him jump so hard his head hit the ceiling. "What's going on?" he asked, rubbing his scalp. What's going on?" he said, rubbing his scalp. Then he heard it for himself, that distant rumble, and straightened up in the driver's seat. "What is that?" "Trouble," I said. He nodded, turning the keys and making the truck start with a lurch. The engine was loud, but even that didn't quite drown out the noise from outside. The berserker clambered down from the car roof, sensing that we were about to move. I commanded it to stay alert, to keep watch for any sign of danger. "We ready to go?" the black suit asked, scanning the sky and the muted sun. "We're running way behind." "The others are coming," I said, willing them to hurry up. I looked at him, realised that he was wearing a 1,000-yard stare. "You okay?" I said. He seemed to snap out of his trance. I was dreaming," he replied. "Haven't had a dream since... Not since the tower." "Was it Furness?" I asked, thinking of my own nectar-inspired nightmares. But the black suit shook his head. "Nah, I was dreaming of a house," he said. "Of a family. I think I was dreaming about my family." I could see the confusion in his eyes, the pain, the fear, and it made my heart bleed, because I'd felt it too, that tug of war between the nectar and the memories, between Furness's promise of power and those fleeting glimpses of a life you'd all but forgotten. I wondered how many of the black suits had felt their new masks slipping, had dreamed of the children they once were. He gripped the wheel as if he was holding on for his life, as if letting go would mean spiralling into an abyss. "I was dreaming of my name," he said, almost choking on the words. There was a crunch from the house, Z, Lucy and Simon slamming the door behind them as they jogged across the garden to the truck. They clambered in, all of them asking questions. I kept my eyes on the black suit. "Your name?" I asked. "You remembered it?" He nodded, his silver eyes blinking in the gloom. It's Sam," he said, his voice hoarse, breaking up. "I don't know how I could have forgotten it for so long." "Welcome back, Sam," I said, clapping him on the shoulder. I turned to the others. "All set?" "Let's scram," said Z, buckling up. Sam put the truck in gear, pulling off down the road. The berserker bounded along beside us on the sidewalk, its nose twitching as it sniffed the air. By the time we'd gotten to the end of it, the rumble was closer. It sounded like a stampede, the noise of 1,000 animals running at once, or the roar of an approaching army. I thought of my dream, the memory of the troops who were charging at Furness, the murder in their eyes. "You know where we're heading?" "You know where we're heading?" Sam asked. All trace of emotion had gone, his steely eyes focusing on the road as he edged the massive truck around a corner. "Get us back on the highway," I answered, the pain in my head burning, as if it was physically pulling us all along. "We should keep heading south." "No problem," he started, the words dying in his mouth as he turned left at another junction and almost drove the truck straight into a tank. It was bombing down the road towards us, its squeaking tracks gouging massive craters in the tarmac, crushing the cars that sat there. The immense black hole of its gun was pointing right at us. Sam swore, wrenching the steering wheel and bumping us onto the curb. I saw the berserker fly past, heading straight for the tank, and I called it back. Berserker or not, it wouldn't last long if that cannon went off. "Hang on," Sam yelled, bringing the truck around so sharply that its right-hand wheels came off the ground, threatening to spill it over onto its side. It demolished a wall, ploughing through a garden, and then we were speeding back the way we'd come, accelerating so fast I thought I'd left my guts behind me. "How did they find us?" Simon asked, all of us apart from Sam staring back at the tank. It had a clean shot, but it didn't take it, pursuing us as we screeched around a bend, trying to find another route. We hadn't gone far before Sam slammed the brakes again, so hard that I almost decapitated myself on the open window. I turned in time to see an army truck, the same size as ours, appear at the junction we'd turned off moments ago, its tyres smoking as it skidded to a halt. "Keep going!" I yelled, pointing down the road. It wasn't like we had much of a choice. Sam floored it, each speed bump threatening to rip off the vehicle's undercarriage and send us soaring into space. I looked back, saw the berserker tearing through the cabin of the other truck, doing what its kind did best. It was chasing after us again in seconds, leaving crimson footprints on the road. We had a bit more warning about the second tank. It was sitting at the end of the road in full view, its turret pointing our way. This one did fire, although the shot went well wide, thumping into a house to our side, hard enough to rip out the inside walls, causing the entire building to fold in on itself like it was made of cards. Sam spun the wheel to the left, sending us up a narrow side street, the truck sparking like an angle grinder as we scraped the parked cars on either side. There was a junction up ahead, another military truck sitting to the right. We turned left, the road here much wider, and it was only when a third tank wheeled into view, forcing us to take the next right, that I realised what was happening. "We're being herded," I said. "Herded?" asked Z, leaning forward as far as his seatbelt would let him. "Like sheep," I said. "Turn right up here." I pointed towards the next junction, a military truck parked across the right-hand road, the left one clear. Sam shook his head. "No way," he grunted, using his body weight to pull the truck to the left. He realised his mistake as soon as he'd made it. Ahead was a dead end, a massive army truck spanning the gap between the shops on either side. 3 armoured Hummers were parked in front of it, all equipped with cannons. And standing on top of the middle one was Colonel Alice Panettiere. Oh dear. Oh, stupid mermaid putty. Okay. Mercy. Sam. Hang on. Almost forgot the most important thing. Oh, that's lovely. Nom nom. Mercy. Sam flipped the handbrake, bringing us to a messy halt 20 metres away from her. He slung the truck into reverse, but I knew it would be no good. I could hear that rumble again, closing in tight behind us. Sure enough, when I looked out of the window, I saw one of the tanks there, pinning us in. There was nowhere for us to go. Sam swore, thumping the wheel. I heard the berserker clamber up the truck, its weight causing the ceiling to dip in and the suspension to groan. We all glared out of the windshield at Panettiere. She was wearing a military outfit now, beige combats, and she gripped the mounted cannon so hard that even from here I could see her knuckles were white. There were men and women standing on the trucks next to her, all armed. "I told you we should have killed her," I said, the nectar turning my voice to a growl. "You still might get your chance," replied Simon. I wasn't so sure. We'd beaten her before, yes, but I'd had 3 berserkers then. I sent out a message to them, a call to arms for any of Furness's creatures that might be nearby. But right now, I couldn't see or sense any other than the one above us. No, Panettiere had the upper hand, and she must have known it because she wore that same smile, the one that seemed friendly until you noticed that there were too many teeth. "I'm sorry, Alex," Panettiere shouted, gripping her rifle. "I told you I couldn't let you go." At the sound of her voice, the berserker threw itself off the roof, flying right at Panettiere. She was too quick, pulling the trigger while it was in mid-air. I'd been wrong. It wasn't a cannon at all. It was another grappling gun. There was a crack of pneumatics, then the harpoon punched through the berserker's stomach, trailing a rope behind it, making the creature spin almost gracefully. It landed in a heap, black blood gushing from the wound as it tried to get up. But its one arm struggled to hold its weight, and after a second or two it collapsed back down. It turned its eyes to me, blinking, a dozen angry wounds opening up in its skin as the soldiers opened fire. Anger boiled up my throat, made even worse by my own helplessness. The creature still fixed me with that forlorn gaze, one eye now sealed shut by nectar. If I went to it, though, then I'd be cut to pieces too. Panettiere must have been able to read my emotions because she began to laugh. "It's not so much fun, is it?" she said, "when you watch your own troops being slaughtered." She pulled herself out of the Hummer's gun turret, hopping down onto the hood and taking her pistol from her belt. "Don't you dare," I said, too quietly for her to hear. She aimed the pistol at the berserker and fired off a couple of shots, both of them crunching through the back of its head. It opened its mouth, a soft moan falling out, along with a torrent of nectar. Panettiere pulled the trigger again, catching the beast in its neck. This time, I reached for the door handle, my fury almost too much to contain. Z grabbed my shoulders, rooting me in place. "To think you value this monstrosity more than a human life," Panettiere said. "This mindless freak, worse than an animal. To think you'd sacrifice all those men and women, all my soldiers, for this." She unleashed another round, this one taking off the berserker's ear. It was still looking at me, pleading, its fingers stretched out towards the truck. "We have to help it," I said. "How?" asked Simon. "We step out there, we're as good as dead. Leave it, Alex, it's only a berserker." But it was more than that. It was a child, torn open and patched back together too many times to be recognisable, yes, but it had once been like me, like all of us. Right now its face was so mutated it was almost alien, but its expression of pain and fear was as human as anything I'd ever seen. It was the expression of a kid who just wanted to go home. It was that thought that let me know what I had to do next. I locked eyes with the berserker, entering its thoughts, trying to calm it. I could sense the emotion there, like a raging storm inside its head, but past those dark clouds was a crack of sunshine, as if the heavens had opened. Through that crack, I realised, were its memories. In that sliver of golden light lay the kid that this berserker had once been. "It's okay," I said. My voice was barely audible, and yet I knew it heard me. "Don't be afraid of it." I guided the berserker towards the light, ushering it there, and I could feel its heart lift as I pushed it through the darkness. As it remembered. It seemed to slough off its new body, seemed to step right out of the mind that Furness had created for it. "Are you sure?" I heard Furness ask. "It will die." "I'm sure," I said, holding on to the creature inside my head, holding on until with one final, shuddering sigh, the berserker, the kid, disappeared. Outside the truck, on the street, the creature's eyes had dulled to lead, its chest still. "What did you do?" asked Sam. "What I had to," I replied, pushing the sadness and the confusion down inside me where it couldn't do any harm. "Oops!" sneered Panettiere, lowering her pistol to her side. She turned to the truck next to her, to a man holding just about the biggest sniper rifle I'd ever seen. He pointed it our way. "What now?" Lucy asked. "If we hit those shops hard enough, we might make it through," suggested Sam. "We might end up in a ball of flames too," Simon replied. "Besides, company's on its way." I could hear helicopters in the air above us, the beat of their blades like a sonic pulse in my head. I doubted we'd be able to evade them, being the only moving vehicle in the whole city that Panettiere didn't control. "We might be able to bargain with her," said Z. "I mean, you know where Furness is now, right? Maybe we can give her his location or lead her there, something like that. Let's just see what she wants." "Just give us Z and you can go," Panettiere yelled down from the truck, her timing impeccable. Or maybe not," Z said, laughing without humour. "We need you, Z," Panettiere went on. "We need your resistance to the nectar. Turn yourself in and we'll let your friends live. That's a promise." "We had enough of your promises in the hospital," I shouted back. "I admit we got off on the wrong foot," Panettiere said, not missing a beat. "But we don't have to resort to surgery. There are other ways. Please, Z, at least talk to me." "Can any of you drive?" asked Sam. "I can," said Z. "Yeah, me too," said Lucy. "Why?" "She's not going to let us go," he went on. "Any of us, even if we do what she says." "You think?" asked Simon, his voice laced with sarcasm. "The only important thing is that we get you to Furness, said the black suit. I don't know why, but it's the right thing to do. You sure about that, Sam? I asked, meeting his eye. I don't know whether he's going to kill you or you're going to kill him. All I know is that for some reason, the two of you meeting is the only way this war is going to end. If that doesn't happen, if she takes you, then nobody wins. Everybody dies. Z, yelled Panettiere, I'm going to give you to the count of 5. Then we're coming to get you. And trust me, you don't want us to come and get you. Because we can do this the easy way or the hard way, Z. And if we do it the hard way, we don't actually need you alive. Maybe I should just go with her, Z said. Then maybe she'll let you leave. You can find Furness and end this. Get back in time to save me, yeah? I'll come for you. I'd spoken those words a lifetime ago to Donovan, the night the Bloodwatch had dragged him off. I'd allowed him to be taken, and he died. I wasn't going to let the same thing happen to Z. And I wasn't the only one. No way, said Lucy. I won't let them put their knives anywhere near you. Everybody ignored Simon's gentle wolf whistle. 1, yelled Panettiere from outside. The man with the rifle peered at us through the enormous scope. Other soldiers were doing the same, a flurry of laser sights dancing around the truck, reminding me of the red flecks inside Furness's nectar. The thought was making my blood churn, my body powering up, ready for combat. So what do we do? I said. Charge at them? No, whispered Sam. You can't risk it. I'm going to go out there. Create a diversion. One of you two needs to take the wheel. 2, said Panettiere. Head for that shop there, Sam continued. The car showroom. The glass front shouldn't give you any problems. If you're going fast enough, you might be able to punch clean out the back. Then just floor it. Get out of the city. Get away from her. I nodded. It wasn't much of a plan, but I sure couldn't think of anything better. The chances were we were all about to get shot to pieces, but the alternative was being back inside the hospital, getting sliced and diced. I pictured Z on the operating table, scalpels in his skin, Panettiere's scientists taking samples. It was almost too much to bear, and I reached out, grabbed him with my left hand. We can do this, I said. 3! Why don't you come with us? I asked Sam. You'll die out there. If I don't distract them, we'll all die, he said. This way, at least, you might just have a chance. Z reached for Lucy's hand, and she took Simon's. Then Simon reached out and grabbed Sam's shoulder. The black suit clamped his fingers over it, squeezing gently. Good luck, Simon said. Man, I never thought I'd be saying that to a suit. Bore, said Panettiere. Come on, Z, time's almost up. You too, said Sam. Then he stuck the rumbling truck in gear, holding his hand out of the window. Z was already scrambling into the front, ready to take the wheel. Sam raised his voice, talking to Panettiere. Okay, you win. Hold on, we're sending him out. I don't know how they spotted the lie. I guess we were stupid to underestimate Panettiere. But the moment Sam opened the door, swinging his body around to exit the truck, the windshield imploded. Sam thumped back into his seat, the bullet passing right through his head, missing Lucy by a hair's breadth, leaving a gaping hole in the back of the truck. A mist of nectar bloomed, painting the world black. I realised there were screams coming from the back of the truck, Lucy and Simon all shouting at me to get down. I ducked as the man fired again, another bullet ripping off the top of the seat where my head had been. Z threw himself over Sam's lifeless body, slamming his fists down onto the pedals. The engine groaned, feeling like it was about to cut out. Then it jolted forward, heading straight for the trucks. The wheel! Yelled Z. I reached out and turned it, trying to remember where the shop was. I heard the crack of the rifle fire, felt the vehicle buck as another bullet hit us. I risked pushing my head up, a gale howling through the broken windshield, making my eyes water. The shop was dead ahead, and I didn't even have time to shout out a warning as we barreled right through the window. Broken glass sheared into the cab, the truck still accelerating as Z floored it with a fist. We bounced off a car, then I was hurled against the dashboard as we detonated through the other side of the shop. The truck slowed, but it didn't stop, hauling itself over the pile of rubble and debris that had once been the shop's back wall. I let go of the wheel, hoisting Z out of the footwell and helping him to get upright next to what was left of Sam. The truck stalled as he let go of the pedals, but he started the engine on the move, revving hard, ploughing us across a small park. The rest of us looked back, peering through the ragged gaps in the truck to see a tank pushing its way through the remains of the shop. But it was too slow, holding back the rest of Palantir's fleet and letting us bounce up a grassy verge onto a road. Z took the first turn he came to, then the next, and the next, and by the time we were skidding around the fourth corner, all of us sick to our stomachs, the rumble of the army was out of earshot. I reached past Z, opening the driver's door. "Sorry, Sam," I said, pushing him out. Didn't feel right, leaving him like this, but what else was I supposed to do? Find a nice spot and bury him? He hit the road with a thump, quickly rolling out of sight. The truck felt a lot emptier without him, and for a minute or two we were all quiet. "The highway, right?" said Z as we passed a sign. He swung onto a rotary, the same one we'd taken yesterday, and a few seconds later we were speeding down the hard shoulder again, the pain in the middle of my forehead. "We lose them," he said. I looked out of the window, the road behind us clear, but I could see black specks against the overcast sky, the helicopters probably tracking us. "She's never going to let us go," said Simon, obviously noticing the same thing. "Good," I said, sitting back in my seat, the cool wind on my face doing little to calm the fire in my blood. "Good?" Simon asked. "How is it good? She'll follow us to the ends of the earth if she has to." "She doesn't have to follow us to the ends of the earth," I said. "She only needs to follow us to the island." I thought of it, of the creatures I'd seen on it, the berserkers that patrolled the cliffs, and I thought of Furness, waiting there for me. He wouldn't let Palantir harm us. He'd unleash his forces, turning her soldiers to meat, pounding their bones into the dirt. Let her come after us. This time she would receive no mercy. "And what happens when we get to the island?" Lucy asked. I smiled, so hard that my cheeks hurt. "That's where my army is." There's going to be a war. I'll leave that one until tomorrow because it's quite a long one. Okay, there we go. I will try my best to be back tomorrow. It depends whether I've still got mermaid putty in my eyeballs. So this stuff, yeah, it's like nectar. I'll come back tomorrow and I'll be like mutated. I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed that. It's funny, isn't it? Yeah. It's what I love about stories like this. I mean, not just this one, but when people you think are baddies become goodies and people you think are goodies become baddies. It's one of my favourite things. And you end up kind of siding with people you never thought you'd side with. And poor old Sam meeting the end there. But yeah, I really like that when I find that in a different story. We shall see. Probably about half the book left to go. We're getting close to the end. Anyway, I hope you have a really lovely day, whatever you're doing, and I'll do my best to be here tomorrow. If not, it'll be Friday, but I'm pretty sure it'll be tomorrow. And I'll see you then. Okay. Bye.